to wear it, but we need it.
Make it stop. Make the hurt stop, please. Like.
Getting lost in your eyes, watching the day turn to night. It gets me every time, every time.
So be.
It's like a dreaming, awaken.
So be it.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Everybody hates the red pill. Just jump in right there. Everybody hates the red pill. Even this morning, I found myself kind of caught up in a little red pill conversation. And I think it's deeper than, you know, red and blue pills.
JLY.
People really, really get upset when you point out the structural instability of their worldview. For example, shout out to Angry Snowman. You said you caught me on No Captivity early this morning. Made a quick appearance up there. Shout out to Freezy and them. Yeah, I was it got brought up, I guess. I forget how we even stumbled into this conversation, but I know OGJ Speed was there and he said something about being pro-black, and then I made the comment to him, to the panel, that to be pro-black is to like worship black women, right? And it was basically because J Speed made this comment about the black women being at the center of the universe for black men, and I'm like, you see, that's how you lose right there. And you know, I started off in unfriendly territory with a dangerous gambit, right? You're not making any friends when you come out pointing that kind of thing out. But I'm not here to make friends. I had enough friends in my life. There was a couple of women on the panel earlier. I mean, during that same conversation, and at one point I asked one of the women, or I asked the women on the panel, is it possible? Do you women think it's possible that I could love you without worshiping you? Is that too much to ask? Can I love you without worshiping you? Do you demand worship along with love? And it took the women a moment. You know, I caught them off guard with that. They didn't know how to respond. I could hear the rusty gears cranking. And the women, eventually they came around to it and said, yeah, you could love me without worshiping me. And I think they probably smelled a trap too, but either way, good for them. They didn't fall into an obvious trap. The problem is, though, because, you know, you don't really ask these type of questions without being ready to go somewhere with it. The problem that we're having is you want me to love you, but I don't want you to love me. As a woman, your love isn't really what I want from you. Women love all kind of goofy things, and a woman will love you and cheat on you at the same time. A woman will love you and stab you in the back at the same time. Her love for you won't prevent her betrayal. What I'm really after is your respect. And you can't respect me if I am equal to or less than. Your respect only goes in one direction. See, it's conversations like that that will lose you friends with the unwashed masses, you know, the uneducated, the unpilled. All the guys who are unpilled, and the women too, that kind of thing makes them uncomfortable because it gets a lot closer to the heart of an issue. As long as we're having conversations about love and romance and, you know, all the things that women expect from men, then we're not really having the proper part of the conversation. And that is where your boy Tim Pool enters the chat.
So what does it mean to be a man? Let's get into it.
Yeah, so the first thing to understand, I think, about what it means to be a man is, you've heard of the Manosphere, Andrew Tate, guys like that.
Is he Manosphere? I mean, like,
yeah, formerly Manosphere. Manosphere
right.
Cracked and sank to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Manosphere is kind of not in its glory. You know, we're in it, not we, but the Manosphere as a concept, as a place, is no longer like this one hardcore kind of handful of content creators that you can kind of look to, and they all sort of know each other and move in unison. It may have been like that for a brief moment in time. Now the Manosphere is just an idea, you know. It's like John Galt and Atlas Shrugged, right? Where are you getting these ideas from? You know, the Manosphere. Why are you guys talking like this all of a sudden? It's the Manosphere, you know. And I think it's really it's like a success, right? It's that moment in Star Wars where Obi-Wan tells Vader, "If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you ever know." And so as the Manosphere, as like this hot ticket item, has kind of dissipated into the online ether, you're just left with this ripple in the force now, and it's the ripple in the force that just won't go away. And that is the real power of the Manosphere. We have permanently disrupted the force, and it's not over yet.
It was like 10 years ago. They called it like the red pill subreddits and stuff.
Yes.
Now red pill means something different.
Yes. So the Manosphere, it grew popular because it said that what men do: men build strength, men build wealth, and men acquire women. Let's say, sleep. The red pill was primarily about like the game, based on the game, and based on sleeping with lots of girls. Let's put it that way. So that's what men do. But
and you know, every time, and take note of this, guys. Take out your little black and white composition notebooks and write this down. Almost every time you hear people, commentators on the internet, talking about what it is men do, what men are for, men's goal, men's purpose, they never attribute a similar rigid purpose structure to women. Women just get to be. Like, I swear to God, girls just do stuff. That's their only real command in life, is be born, grow tits, do stuff. Men, we have a whole list of things that we got to do.
Based on the game and based on sleeping with lots of girls, let's put it that way. So that's what men do. But where it gets things wrong about men is that's not what men are for. Men are for protecting women. Men are
fighting bears.
Men are also for that, yeah,
yes.
and sharks. Yeah, exactly. So men are for protecting women. Men
are for protecting women. Right away, you know, I was gonna do some regular edited video content on this. And because I watched this one clip like yesterday, and then he dropped another clip behind it, you know, because it's all of a long conversation they were having from this one show. And so he dropped the second clip, and I was like, maybe I'll add these two clips together. Then he dropped the third clip just a little while ago, and I just watched it, and I'm like, oh, wait, you know what? I got time this morning. I actually didn't go to work today, so we got time. I can crank out a show before I get up and go do something else later. Because this is wild.
Men are for protecting women. Men
are not for protecting women. That's not how that works. I know my son is not born to protect random vaginas and areolas. That's not what he does. That's not his goal in life, is to just protect women. Gonna get that boy a beating. Talking about, daddy, I'm here to protect women. No, you're not. Who told you that? It's gonna be like one of those 90s commercials where your dad finds your drug stash. Where'd you get this, son? Who told you this? We don't do that in this house. You were not born to protect women.
They're fighting bears.
Men are also for that, yeah,
yes.
and sharks. Yeah, exactly. So men are for protecting women. Men are for having children. Men are for building strength and wealth and a legacy. So the Manosphere says what men do, but it doesn't say what men are for. Men have a purpose. Men have a God-given design.
Indeed. Well, so what's happening? I mean, why are we in this very obvious to everyone phase where families are broken and people aren't having kids?
Well, because families have been broken for quite some time. I think one area, obviously.
Notice too, everyone is cavalier, not just casual, but cavalier in how they're willing to put weight and responsibility and agency on only men's shoulders, because only men are wrong and therefore only men can fix it. Women don't have to do anything. Girls just do stuff.
There's an economic situation where obviously it's difficult for someone who is older Gen Z or even a millennial like myself affording a house. It's very difficult to. And not being able to afford for purchase a home kind of slows you down with building a big family, even if you want it to happen. But I do think there's an element of the millennials, the Gen Zs, they've seen what dysfunction looks like within their own home. And that is scary. It is scary because they saw mom and dad fighting, or they saw dad not in the home. They saw constant dysfunction. And so to them, the idea of marriage and the idea of having children seems like a massive risk. And it is a fear that they don't want to come anywhere close to, because they don't want to repeat what they saw at home. And often we repeat.
How many people actually saw good, healthy, positive marriages that as a man, you wanted to be like that guy? Like, looking around, I really can't think of any marriages like orbiting my personal life, like family or friends of family members who like had a marriage that I wanted to copy. You know, a handful of people were married or whatever, but I don't know that I actually wanted to be that guy in that role. And what I'm getting at is, not only did you see the general chaos, broken homes and mom and dad fighting or whatever, but from the males, just to speak to the uniquely male perspective, because a lot of women, they still want motherhood because they know there's a lock for them in being a mom. Women know there's a guarantee for them in being a mom, but for you as a dad, there is no lock. There is no guarantee for you as a dad, as a man. And so I think a lot of guys just realize that I don't know if I'm putting myself in a good position anymore. Like, I'm looking around and I'm not seeing a lot of guys winning, or at least winning to a sufficient degree that I would say, okay, I'll roll the dice. I'll play the game. Dick Thug with the $5 super chat. He says, Dr. Thunder does have a point. Protection does come with a certain amount of control. If they want protection, they have to be controlled. Really, Doc said that. Oh, that's right. Good for you, Doc. Shout out to Doc Thunder, that good old Black Orthodox church wisdom. And shout out to Dick Thug with the $5 super chat. Thank y'all for coming through today. Please pull up a chair, hit that like button, guys. We are just getting started. Why does Tim Pool hate the Manosphere?
Good women are dead. Evil bitches, rise up!
Repeat the behavior that we were surrounded by. So I do think that that's a big element of fear that is stopping this from happening. And now in social media era, we have propaganda, right? So we have propaganda that backs up that fear. Don't do it, and here's why. And obviously we can point at like divorce rates, right? But these are all things to affirm the fear that people already have. Someone like myself who wanted to get married, those divorce rate stats, you made me aware, but that's not going to stop me, because
I think a lot of the men, like, and this is Adam Coleman right here. You guys might have met Adam before on this channel, kind of on the main channel. But I did an interview with Adam a year or two ago when he was pushing his first book. I forget, from victim to victor, or something like that. And I interviewed Adam about his book, and now he's he's kind of grown in his career and his notoriety a little bit, and he's doing a Timcast for the first time. And I noticed since I did that interview with him, we follow each other on Twitter, and he's gotten married, and a lot of good things happened for him recently over the years since we first met. And there's something I do notice about a lot of the I don't know how to characterize this, the anti-Manosphere crowd, let's put it that way, because there are a lot of people who are well-meaning, perhaps, and I don't want to like castigate this particular guy as if he's not well-meaning, but there is a hope that is just internally centered in these people. It doesn't matter what the numbers are. It doesn't matter what all the evidence tells me. It doesn't matter what I know to be true. I hope. And I'm not going to knock his hope, but it's a hard thing to replicate in others in the face of such obvious issues. Like your hope versus our reality. Who do you think wins?
Right, but these are all things to affirm the fear that people already have. Someone like myself who wanted to get married, those divorce rate stats, you made me aware, but that's not going to stop me because this is something that I wanted to pursue. So the people who are on the edge, who are a little bit scared, the propaganda element is something that is actually slowing them down.
And you talk about it, you know, they're a little bit scared. You describe it like it's an 8-year-old on the edge of the pool, afraid to jump all the way in. Like there's nothing to fear. It's just 4 feet of water. You're actually 4.5 feet tall. You'll probably be okay, right? Like you're talking about it as if it's little kids afraid to get their ponytails wet at the local pool. Like, no. It's not a fear thing. Not fear like it's a petty thing. It's not a petty fear. Do you really want to risk throwing your life in a blender by putting yourself in a situation where you knowingly, now at this point, you know the score, you are knowingly giving yourself less options. It's putting yourself in a particular box in a lot of ways. And I know there you know, situations people can work out that kind of sidestep what are a lot of legal issues, and that's different. That's a little bit better. But generally speaking, just the basic go down to the courthouse, I marry you type of deal, bruh. It's not a petty fear.
Yeah, I think it's true. Divorce courts favor women.
Right.
No fault divorce has turned marriage into dating.
Right.
People no longer view their oath as an oath. You go before a priest or a judge or however you've done it, and you are swearing an oath. Now it's just kind of viewed like we're going steady now, and then at any point you can be like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. Let's leave.
Please don't say people do that as if it's just, you know, 50-50 across the board, right? Women do that to men way more often than men do that to women. At the best or worst, maybe if that's how you look at it, a man will acquire another woman. He'll get a girlfriend. He didn't want to lose his wife. He just wants to get something off here and there, right? But I got this thing over here at home. It's stable. Everybody's happy. The kids are growing. We're happy. I don't want to blow that up. But, you know, she got a big old butt over here. Like men do that kind of thing. Women will just pull the pin. Nobody gets to be happy.
And so I think no fault divorce has been a disaster. I think issues like that have terrified young men. You do mention the propaganda, but a lot of these young men are just like, there's too many stories where a dude works his whole life, buys a house, builds a family, and then he's 43 and his wife says, I'm leaving you, takes the kids and kicks him out. And now he's bachelor, dishonored, shamed, with no access to his kids. And
Right.
so there's a lot of young guys being like, man, better to be single and traveling around and doing whatever you want than find yourself in that circumstance. I'm curious what you guys, what do you think about this?
Well,
And Tim, for all his hate that he's giving off right now, you're literally that guy, though, Tim. You are that guy. Living your life on your own terms, building your little world up. Didn't even have a kid until just a couple years ago, I think you said. You're obviously not married. You are that guy.
I think anything good in life takes risk, right? And that includes relationships. But I also think that a lot of young men, especially someone like myself, where I grew up without my father, I didn't know how to pick a woman. I didn't have a father or even like a household relationship to mimic. It's very easy to end up with women. Yes, they'll sleep with you. Yes, they'll make babies with you and they'll live in the house that you provide for them. But are they women of character? Do they actually want the things that you want? Or are you just marrying the first woman who slept with you for a long time? And often I've listened to, obviously there are legitimate stories. These guys are great guys and the woman's doing X, Y, and Z. anytime I make a mistake, I try to look at, all right, but what's my part?
Are you telling me Tim Pool's married? I Control said he's married. Is Tim Pool married? I don't know if he's married. I never heard that before though.
Where is the red flag? Because in all these situations, there's some sort of red flag. And if I find out that in your story, well, she used to be a stripper, and it's like, well, that's very high risk, right? You can't like, don't be mad that this is the outcome that you got. Like, there's usually something that they overlooked because they didn't know. Not that these men are bad.
Oh, he got married like 3 months ago, so he's new in the game. Okay. Oh, you see, this is why you got to talk to people and ask questions. I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought he was married to Super Chats. I didn't know he married an actual woman. That okay, good for you, Tim. Did he take the beanie off, or did he like wear a tuxedo with the beanie on? Or maybe the tuxedo was all beanie. That would have been kind of cool. That'd have been interesting. Like the tuxedo was just all beanie material. But you know, you get it trimmed and tailored. You get it, you know, sucked in at the right part, so it looks cool. Shout out to Tim and his beanie marriage.
They didn't know what to look for in a quality woman. And in many ways, for some women, they don't know what to look for in a quality man, right? So there's a demonstration of what a healthy relationship looks like that they're lacking because they didn't see it at home. And honestly, for a lot of these guys who are really fixated on Manosphere red pill type of content, the good content that comes from the Manosphere red pill is actually stuff that your father would have told you.
The true stuff.
Yeah, the true stuff.
Like what?
Well, for one, confidence is incredibly important.
Here we go with this word confidence again. I was just arguing with a whole pack of nibbers about the word confidence this morning. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Jesus.
Right? Not to chase women, although some of these guys tell you to chase women or at least to buy women. So it really depends on who you go towards. But the good
there are very few red pill creators who will tell you openly to buy women. That is a very small niche thing. I don't even tell you to go buy women. I tell you to negotiate.
good stuff is build up yourself and the women will follow. Show yourself to be a man of character and the women will follow. When you chase women, then you end up with the wrong woman.
Nobody in the red pill tells you to be a man of character and the women will follow. Honestly, your red pill thinkers and philosophers have all kind of come to the observation, to the awareness that women don't really rank character as much as we've all been led to believe. That's literally where the whole bad boy phenomena comes in. That's the 80-20 issue. If you look good enough, if you got an appropriate amount of what they call swag, character be damned. You think all these baby moms got that way because they were moving out of loyalty to character, out of dedication to higher morals and values? You really think women care about higher morals and values? You ain't wrong with the $5 super chat. Dumb Donald Beanie Fat Albert. Oh my God. Oh, why you dissing the boy? Leave Adam alone. He don't know, but he is happily married. He can't tell what's going on out here. You gotta leave the happily married guys happily married.
I'm done. I'm done with life. And it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done. I'm done with.
I don't want to mess up the happily married people's attitude on life. Stay blissfully ignorant and happy. All right. I wish you happiness.
You know what I find fascinating is that Western civilization, which many of these guys purport to love, not all of them, but a lot of guys in the United States view the West as inherently superior. It's completely built upon monogamy and a family-based moral tradition. I don't understand how you simultaneously have some of these red pill guys that are saying bang as many women as possible and don't get married, while also trying to argue that we should be upholding and defending the values of the West.
Right. Because they're existing in a post-sexual revolution context.
yes, a post-sexual revolution context, right? But as men, we don't exist in the post-sexual revolution alone. You think it's only the men who exist in the modern world and have turned their back on the Christian traditional faith and moral outlook? You think it's only the men?
It's the world that they live in. They're still conceiving of relationships based on how things began in the 1960s, which is that sexual expression is the most important thing you can do with your freedom. And so the advice that I also hope fathers would give is don't have sex before marriage, because as soon as you start sleeping together, all the hormones get activated, the blinders go on, you fall in love, and you completely lose sight of who the person is. This is a person you're going to make a binding lifelong commitment to. And if you can't be sober during that process, you have no idea who you're actually going to end up married to. And then you end up married and you discover that they're not who you thought they were after 6 months of romantic intoxication. No, you have to stay sober through that process until the very end, so that you make sure that when you're making a covenant, a binding commitment to this woman or this man, that you really know who they are.
I think that
Now, I don't really like to attack people coming from a religious faith, but I think he's arguing in bad faith. Incredibly bad faith argument. How many guys are really, especially in the last 10, 15 years, how many people are really getting married after 6 months of hot coitus, right? I don't know that that's what people are really doing. And I don't know that these are the situations that have created such anger and such resentment from a lot of men. All right. It's not because you were banging some chick for a little while and then, oh, I went crazy. Like, no, that's not, that's actually expectable. Like, you can expect that you bang a chick for a little while and then she goes left, right? That's not what guys are really flipping about. It's the guys who have been married for 15 years and more, and then one day the wife just decides, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna do this anymore, right? It's the women who just decide that I don't think you need to see your children as much anymore. Like, that's the situation, and it's not something that, oh, well, I was banging a hooker and we got married and I can't believe she didn't turn out to be like a good housewife. No. There's a lot more complicated things happening here than just, oh, we were, messing around for 6 months and then you turned on me.
There's one answer to all of it, and it's go to church.
Yes, Christ. Yeah.
And again, I always stress this because I'm not a Christian, but it's a function of logic. If you are so there's a couple components here. Birth control.
Oh yeah, I do see the
very prevalent, and it affects how women think and how they smell you.
That's right.
So they
notice how Tim's got a wedding ring all of a sudden, and he's like, I think the answer to Western civilization is Christianity. Huh? Funny how that went.
We've done this research that when a woman gets off birth control, the man smells different to her, and she may not like it. So if you're a guy and you're living in New York, Chicago, LA, Boston, some big city, and you're 20 years old and you meet a woman for the first time at 20, likely she will be on birth control. And I'm not saying she shouldn't be, or there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying you both should understand what's going to happen if she comes off of that. If you're going to start a long-term relationship, she should probably stop taking birth control so that you can understand whether or not there's actual compatibility. But the bigger issue, I think, with this is that relationships throughout the past several thousand years, probably longer, but you grew up in the same way as your spouse.
That's right.
Now, I think one of the big problems is,
now notice that even from his non-red pill position, and everyone at this table, all three of these guys, they can describe the issues of the modern world. They can point out the problems, the changes, the upsets and whatnot. But then they will always immediately look to the men like, hey, suck it up. You just got to keep getting in there. It's like, no, I think we have problems. And it's not that men are just refusing because each and every man looks at all of the problems and makes some kind of calculated decision. No, there are just pressures in life that move people down certain paths.
you're going to be from New York. You're going to go to school in Boston. You are 20 years old, meaning you're an adult already, and you meet a woman and your lives are completely different.
Right.
You're from an inland area where you grew up in the woods and the mountains. She's from the coast where she went boating. You have very little in common, but college. Now you're at college, you have similar professors, and so your lives, just for this moment, are near each other. And you're having conversations, and you're talking about, oh man, school yesterday, the class yesterday, and the professor, he was so dumb. And then there's a concert, we're going to go do that. And your similar interests find this point of inflection. And then when you leave college, let's say you stay together, you decide to get married, all of a sudden now you're the person who wants to go for a hike. She wants to go for a boat ride. You have
Who cares what she wants? You got to pay for it either way, right? You're the one paying for it, right? Because you're the man, right? No matter what changed over the last 100 years, you're still the man, right?
completely different expectations and worldviews.
Yeah.
So I think one of the challenges we're facing with family today is that you go back 100 years, you both grew up in an agrarian culture, you both grew up working on farms, you both expected your spouse to be like your parents or your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And so your wife is like, I want to tend to the kids and cook dinner and make food and take care of some animals while you go hunt. And then maybe you're a blacksmith or something. And the guy says, that's perfect. This is the greatest thing I've ever heard of. You get married and you have the exact same expectations, moral values, commitments, and views on oaths.
Now, he's half right, but he's not really getting the major change, right? What changed over the last 100 or so years isn't that we got urbanized, right? Because low key, mankind has always had urbanization. We've had cities. We've had the difference between living in the city versus living out in the country for millennia. We've had cities as a species. We do urbanization and have been doing it for a while. Modern urbanization is really a product of industrialization, and that's a whole other thing. But the issue is, it's only in the last 100 years have we decided that women are completely independent operators, even under the context of a marriage. That's what we've done away with over the last 100 years. The idea that the husband or the father is the head of the family, he's like the coach of the football team. The idea that he gets the last word, the idea that there's just a natural order that leans in his direction, that's what's been abandoned over the last 100 years. And so now women can come into any situation with a man and say, well, you're a man. These are the things men do. This is what men are supposed to do. But there's never an equivalent conversation about women and what women are supposed to do. And there is nothing a man can do to compel behavior from women. That's what's changed. That's what's different. So now when you get to the Tim Pool scenario, you want to go walking and you want to go hiking and she wants to go on a boat ride. Well, now she's just going to leave you, go on the boat ride because she's got her money and she's got another guy willing to go on the boat with her. Maybe he'll take her out on the boat ride and she'll keep her money.
I don't know how you repair that.
I mean, you go local ultimately, and there's an important element to what you said, that your parents in that scenario, in that small town scenario, they know each other. So her parents have seen you grow up since you were a little kid. You know, your parents have seen her grow up. And so it's not just two individuals choosing to come together. It's actually two families that are merging each other. And that creates such a stronger structure around the married couple that we just don't have. And to continue from the example that you provided, this couple comes together in college, they get married, and then they're still on their own in the city. And so if they want to try and build a traditional life in the city, they have people living sort of a more modern lifestyle. So the pressures away from the traditional life are enormous in the cities. And so they're essentially on their own.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, urbanization is a tricky thing. But I think it's not the main thing. The pressures of urbanization can more or less be met with discipline and culture, but these are the things that just don't exist anymore.
How can human beings in the span of a couple of decades completely destroy their way of life? Honest question. Yeah. But this is,
it took longer than a couple decades.
I maybe 100 years.
You could probably go back to the 1800s and some of the liberal values. They flowered in the 1960s, but the process was underway long before then, particularly in the 1950s. Like the Kinsey Report was a huge deal that we don't hear about today.
Right. What I mean is, even if you go back to the 1800s, people were still largely agrarian. We were coming to the point of industrialization, and it is true. This is where things started to change. Technology started to come into place. Industry started to grow. But that's so. Either way, within the span of a handful of generations, the way of life for humans, wherever you were from, was largely similar. The life you lived was the same life your grandfather or grandmother lived. Now it's you're in a city by yourself. Your parents are thousands of miles away or wherever. You met a person for the first time. Within a few months, you're like, hey, this is going pretty good. Maybe we should get married. But you don't actually know each other.
Again, from the male point of view, you only have what they call game, right? To keep this woman sort of locked in. And if your game falters or whatever, then, you know, on to the next one, right? And because we don't have that traditional setup of family pressures and social pressures, all the pressure actually gets put on men to behave well, to meet expectations, to perform to a standard. And women just, you know, girls just get to do stuff.
Not experienced life together. This is within the span of a very short amount of time relative to human civilization, and a complete inversion. I don't think it's possible for humans to make that work.
Well, and just to kind of rephrase what you were saying before, the scenario that you gave, the problem is that we're dating strangers. Like, we don't know anybody. And what you were talking about as far as families coming together, they already know each other. That's called social proofing, right? So we increase the likeliness that relationships are going to work out because we know someone who knows the person that we're trying to date. We have some sort of social proofing as far as safety, as far as interest. The list goes on. All these different qualities that go beyond, are they attractive? Do they seem nice? Right? Because anybody can seem nice the first time you meet them.
That's right.
So we're missing that element. We're also having a world that is
You know the irony about social proofing? You know, so he who has everything will be given. The guy who gets all the girls is going to get all the girls because he gets all the girls, right? It's a weird snake eating its own tail, Ouroboros kind of thing, but that's sort of how that's what it becomes, because that is also social proofing for a lot of women.
actually, it's a big world, but it's small now, because I could say, you know what, I'm dating a woman that's in Germany, and I can get on a plane and pretend like I'm dating her. And when I'm not there, we can chat and we can FaceTime. We can do all that stuff. The world seems a lot smaller. We don't work in our towns anymore. We have to, I live in New Jersey. Most of the people I know work 20 minutes, and that's close, or longer. 45 minutes is not abnormal. So we're away from our communities. We have less community. I live in a building with a bunch of people. I don't know their names.
That's
You know?
crazy.
So it's just, I know their faces. I don't know their names. We say hi and bye. That's about it. So our society's become more technologically advanced, but we're more distant in communication and actual human relationships.
Of mutual interest when that may not necessarily be good for us. I think there's another problem with dating, and that's the lack of, we'll say, leverage. So it used to be that marriage was celebrated as normative, it's godly, it's a blessing. Now marriage is considered oppressive, and so there isn't as much of a societal incentive for people to marry. In fact, people kind of try to avoid it. And so you end up in situations where both men and women, for different reasons, can delay.
If there is incentive to marry, it's usually for the woman. Men don't marry out of incentive nowadays. Men marry out of duty and hope.
Getting married and can say, oh, I haven't met the right person yet. Like, no, you met the right person 6 months ago, but you kind of flaked out on it. Both men and women do this because there's no leverage. There's always endless optionality.
You know what I think this is? I think it's media. You get mass media through radio and TV, and they tell you great stories of beautiful people. And so for both men and women, and I think this is much more likely to affect women, they see the men around them in their communities, and these are good, normal, hardworking, working class guys. And then they see on the TV Brad Pitt, and they're told that there are better men than this. All of a sudden, their view of what is a 10 and what is a 1 skews in a ridiculous way, where the 10 is going to be the multimillionaire playboy philanthropist and the working.
Now we're kind of getting around to the female part of the equation here. You know, he's discussing female desire and women's choices.
Class guy's a 4. hey, he's a good looking dude or whatever, but what, he makes 40K a year and he works in a mechanic shop or something like that? No, no, no. The real opportunity is out there somewhere else. So instead of finding your community member and neighbor who's of a similar situation to you, people will look for their fictional other.
Mhm.
For guys, now what are we seeing? I can sit here and say, oh, women want the celebrity man or whatever. Sure, but guys are getting robots. Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
They're using AI apps and they're going to start buying androids. They're going to be like, this is easy.
Yeah.
And I worry too with the AI advent, which I talk about quite a bit. People are going to plug their brains into the computer and be like, I don't need anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that example, you're talking about this idea that men are just for to be pay pigs within a relationship. And his value is basically only what he can provide financially. And the detrimental part about that viewpoint is that, well, what if he becomes the father of your child and you still have that mentality?
Mm-hmm.
So then the father becomes optional. So it's already bad enough that you think men are optional, but now you think fathers are optional.
Mm-hmm.
So
Really, you've noticed that. Tell me more, Adam.
oh, if he loses his job, he is of no value, right? And if you can work and make more than him, then what is he there for? Because he must not provide any sort of value to this child, right? So I think it's this complete reduction as far as what men are for, but also what fathers are for, and how much benefit we have for our kids. And I think in my circumstance, I really saw how it affected me not having my father, but even more so when I became a father to my son's 19.
Yeah, but see, you're a man, Adam, so it doesn't really matter how you feel about not having a father. How do women feel about their kids not having fathers? That's the heart of the issue. And it's kind of sort of feels like they're all right with it.
When I became a father and as he got older, I saw how much farther my son was versus when I was his age, because he could always go to me. When he would mess up, I'll be like, it's okay, right? I didn't have that. My mom, I love my mom, but she was busy. She was working. And on top of that, I didn't have a man to relate to kind of give me like, not to cry with me, but to be like, get up, you'll be fine. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. I've made that mistake. So having that element missing, like there's so much male compassion that's missing from families, only because, well, he doesn't make enough.
I think what you're actually telling us is that there's female compassion missing from families, meaning that it's the female part of the equation lacking in compassion. It is the female who is unsympathetic or unempathetic toward the male figure.
What is he here for? He's a headache, right? There's no willingness to have that man around because he's optional.
There's a men and women are different.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's shocking news to liberals. They're surprised by this. I think everyone's a blank slate.
Breaking news.
But the mentalities and the hormone drives of men and women are very, very different. I feel like technology is going to cater to those hormonal desires and split men and women into different areas where they'll probably just isolate.
Yeah. I think there's very little societal incentive for marriage and family. And that's why this Trump baby bonus now, I think it was Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee who said he would like that better. And I agree with him. If it were incentivizing married women to have children instead of single women, I think that would be much, much better than just incentivizing the childbirth. But I think.
Yeah, we don't need to pay for single moms. We're already doing it now. It kind of sucks. It's not as fun as everybody told us it would be.
Is probably why Democrats are pushing so hard on the illegal immigration thing. They cannot replace their worldview. It's gone. And with the sentiments in this country on illegal immigration, I hate to be crass, but it's a self-correcting problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, the math will win out.
We're good. Let's go party.
Well, I mean, the question is, what kind of devastation will we experience until the problem corrects itself?
Yeah. Well, I do think that because we were talking about Trump and then credit and all these different things, but I do think it's incredibly important for us to shift the culture.
Yeah.
We have to talk about, yes, are things getting more expensive? Yes, of course. But listen.
Now, look, on the one hand, you all admit that, yeah, we have to shift the culture. The culture isn't an issue. That's one lever we can kind of pull without bringing the government down, right? Shift the culture. But then you look at the guys who are putting in the most energy towards shifting the culture to the right, and you hate them because they're in the manosphere. It's weird.
Broke people have children too.
That's
Like
right.
they just do, and they find value in having children. And maybe you don't need this. Like, and there are legitimate situations where maybe you just don't need these things. There's a value in having a child. You just named a moment where you have multiple generations on the phone. You can't put a price tag on that, right? It is something that it is natural, it is beautiful to experience. And I don't care how much tax credit you give, you can't replace that with $5,000. So I do think that we have to talk about it as far as a culture, the immediate going to, oh, children.
But see, nobody wants to address why women will not get married in the grand scheme of things, and it's a combination of educational and career opportunities. We are simply giving women all these avenues away from marriage, and by giving, I mean literally paying for it. My argument is that we stop subsidizing women. You want to have rights, you can have all the rights on paper that you have right now, but the government doesn't spend one single dime towards your rights, because the government doesn't spend a dime towards my rights. I just got to figure it out. I got to achieve things and make deals and arrangements with people.
Are a drain, children are this, and this remixing children as being, by virtue of someone else creating them, they didn't ask to be here. Somehow you blame them for draining you. Right. And that's what I kind of talk about in my book, this element of selfishness, this element of, I don't want to sacrifice, right? Because once you become a parent, you have to sacrifice for someone who cannot do for themselves. That's what the children, they are unable to do that. Your child can't get in a car, go somewhere, get a job, and take care of themselves. You have to do that. So it means you have to sacrifice time and effort and money. But there is something absolutely wonderful about that. The best time I ever had when it came to raising my son was his first year. His mother went back to work. I worked overnights. I would pick him up right after work and I would watch him all day. I would get like 3 hours of sleep.
This is all great, and I love that time in my life with my son too, but none of this is the point.
And I was exhausted. I would take days off just so I could sleep. But it was the best time because I got to watch my son grow up. Even though I was exhausted, I would take a nap when he took a nap. And I can't replace that. And it built a bond. Like, you can't offer me money that would replace that feeling I had raising my son. And remember, men don't care about raising children. Remember, that's part of the culture. No, there's something absolutely beautiful about that. Being next to my son every day, changing his diapers, feeding him, watching him grow, tickling him, watching him laugh. There is so much wonder and beauty in this particular act as far as being a father that we do not talk enough about.
Amen.
That was so beautiful. I'm over here all misty-eyed and stuff. Freeze on Lou says, even if every woman tomorrow became perfect, a man who sat still would still lose to the man who built himself today. No disagreement, but I don't know if that's really what I'm laying out here. I'm not arguing that men or women need to become perfect. What I'm arguing is that we've created environments that push people toward different behavior sets and outcomes. Different behavior sets produce different outcomes. So it's not, I'm not really, and this is why I don't like to get too much into like the relationship minutia conversation, because I don't really think it's about game and frame as much as people like to make it seem. I think there was really just an order and a system that we've abandoned. We want the outcomes and the posturing of like 1950s America, but we don't have the social infrastructure of that. And so without that social infrastructure, you can game and frame yourself to death. It won't really change anything on the grand scale.
Indeed. Well, so let's help out some young guys these days. My view of
here we go.
This manosphere stuff, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, is I think these guys are how can I say this? Cowards, maybe.
Avoidant.
Pussies is the word they might want to use.
Many of them are.
Really?
But I'll explain why I think that.
Do tell. Why the shots though? What did the Manosphere ever do to Tim Pool? Everybody hates the Manosphere. Dudes just be over here chilling, not getting bitches.
You get these guys that they get real tough. You know, they sound tough. They work out, they get ripped, and they say, you got to bang all these women, screw that. They're talking about having as many girls as you can, and women are bad. So, and I'm just like, you know, throughout history,
Women are not bad. Women simply are women, though. And nobody wants to be honest about what women are. We don't even like to really, from a legal standpoint, define what women are anymore. Nobody wants to be honest about that. Women are not bad. Women are women. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean to be woman? And what does it mean to be the man who has to deal with this shit?
men have been the men who built Western civilization and succeeded were the men willing to throw themselves on the grenade. They were the men who were willing to sacrifice themselves for the world they believed in. Some of these men were the ones who yelled Deus Vult and were in the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as much to the Christians who may not want to hear this, even the Islamic jihadis, these were men who were fighting and dying because they were like, you must live the way I demand it. There was.
Should the Manosphere men go on a jihad? Red pill jihad, people? You guys busy next Sunday? Red pill jihad, anybody? I don't think I'm doing anything. Who's up for a red pill jihad? Tim, I hope you're there.
Was a demand. Now we got a lot of guys who are like, I don't want to deal with hardship, so I refuse to.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, that's like, you're a pussy, dude. And I'm using that word intentionally to insult them. Look.
Really, though? What's that about? What's all that about, though? Like, who really made Tim Pool mad? All these personal shots. It's very unprofessional, Tim.
I refuse to.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, that's like, you're a pussy, dude. And I'm using that word intentionally to insult them. Look, guys today that we value and honor are the ones who run into a burning building and die. They're the first responders who run into the towers on 9/11,
Mhm.
trying to save as many people as possible, and then the buildings collapse on them. They're the men and women who enlist to go serve our country and our interests and protect our interests, even if bad people are in politics. It's about the service and duty to this country. And then there's this sphere of influence where guys are like, you know what, guys, you're mistreated and feminists are bad, so you should not be an honorable man or a man of virtue.
I mean, outside of God, explain to me why I should. Because God is the only thing that can compel me toward better behavior in these absurd situations, right? And sometimes I feel like God is just going to turn his head and you know, quietly accept the way it is down here. I don't know if you can offer me anything, Tim.
You should be as degenerate and mean-spirited as they are so that you can experience pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And maybe I'm being a little bit crass, but a lot of these guys are basically saying,
I don't deserve pleasure. Wait. How come I don't deserve pleasure? Everybody else get to be pleasure. I don't get no pleasure. I just gotta be miserable and suffer and everything. I just gotta work and slave till I die. Or does some woman points her finger at me and takes all my life away? I don't get no pleasure. That's crazy. I don't know if I like this.
that's really what it is. And maybe I'm being a little bit crass, but a lot of these guys are basically saying, don't suffer. You should just have whatever you want. Don't let them take it from you. And I'm just like,
suffering, and you know, especially Tim is not religious, so this context, it's hard for him to grasp, but suffering on end is hell. Suffering on the path to righteousness is how you get into heaven. And if you're asking me to suffer indefinitely just because, well, then that sounds like hell. If there's a path to righteousness, all right, tell me more.
I don't know. I always thought being a man was you're born in the dirt, you're stepped on, you're treated like crap, you're spit on, and by the time you're a man, you're carved out of stone,
Mhm.
and you're unfair.
No, when you step on a man, and stomp on him his whole life, and you spit on him and you mistreat him his whole life, you don't create a man, you create a slave. That's literally how we treated slaves for eons. That way they never even thought about rising up against their betters. They would never even look their masters in the eye because they've been getting kicked and punched and spat on since birth.
Suffer. You should just have whatever you want. Don't let them take it from you. And I'm just like, I don't know. I always thought being a man was you're born in the dirt. You're stepped on. You're treated like crap. You're spit on. And by the time you're a man, you're carved out of stone.
No, notice, not that I want to, but girls get none of that. Right? It's like if you have a boy baby, you just give birth directly into the mud. Is that what happens? Like little girls are born onto a cloud of love and happiness, and then they just grow up, and then girls just get to do stuff. But if you're a man, as soon as you're born, they scan the belly. They do an ultrasound so they know for a fact, and then they just birth you right into a pit of mud, just right into the mud. And they be like, all right, you got it from here. You'll be a man one day. Sounds crazy.
And you are unfazed by the trivialities of the world. But now we have a lot of young men being influenced by guys who look like they're carved out of stone, but they're wads of cookie dough.
Yeah.
They've never actually fought. They've never gone through hardship. They've never been homeless. They've never been trounced upon or disrespected. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying some.
Is trounced upon a thing? I don't want to get all word police, but that just jumped out at me. You're right, Tim. I don't think I've ever been trounced upon, Been shot at, took some lumps, got beat on a little bit here and there over the years, been at the bottom of the dog pile and all that kind of stuff, right? I don't know if I've ever been trounced upon. You make it sound fanciful.
Some of these guys are acting like they have been when they're not.
One of the things I like to draw a distinction between gravitas versus bravado. Bravado is big, it's flashy, right? You can put bravado on a credit card. You can get a flashy car and you can get a big house and you can act the part, right? But those men typically have very weak spines. A man who has gravitas creates a sense of gravity around him that's based on overcoming suffering. And he doesn't need to announce himself. He doesn't need to, be flashy. He can just walk into a room and people somehow orient towards that man. That's a man who has righteously overcome suffering.
That's Jesus, bro. Be more like Jesus. I wonder where this bald guy comes from. I bet you he has like one of these neo-modern downtown Portland type churches. He just looks like a new Christian pastor. He never wears a suit. He always wears jeans, and his long sleeve button-up shirt's got the sleeves rolled up to the elbow to show his tattoos and let everybody know that he used to be a sinner too. I'm telling you, he's got one of these new age half hippie churches that are always in like some downtown corporate type of area.
And one of the things I wanted to say about the first responders is men are naturally drawn to seek glory. And of course, being a first responder, being a soldier, rushing into the buildings on 9/11, things like that are naturally very glorious. But
probably doesn't even use his last name. He's Pastor Doug. That's what he tells everybody. No, I'm just Greg, matter of fact. He's a Greg, Pastor Greg.
But we've lost a sense of the glory of righteous fatherhood. We don't honor fathers in the way that we once did in our society. And there can be something equally glorious about a father having kids, having, say, 8 kids, whatever, when he starts at age 20 and faithfully works a blue-collar job to support his family so his kids grow up and have even more kids than he did. And being that man who plants himself like a tree and supports the growth of all of that, that is as glorious as running into a building on 9/11.
You know what's not as glorious as running into a building on 9/11? This is going to sound crazy. This might shock you, but I know what is not as glorious as running into a building on 9/11? Family court. It's like the opposite level of glorious, right? It really is. It is like inglorious. And the thing is, everybody, they hate men as like this broad collective now, because apparently it's deeper than just the manosphere. It's like showing up in statistical projections, right? If most women are going to be single by like 2035, then obviously the men aren't marrying the women. So what's wrong with the men, right? That's how people are approaching the problem. But nobody wants to ask the men, well, why aren't you buying? Like, and it's always helpful to frame things in economic terms, because economics is like the raw expression of human desires and wants. Ask guys why they are no longer shopping in a store that they've been loyal to since, like, the dawn of time. Like, how come you guys just aren't spending your money anymore? What is it? What can we do here at Macy's to help our customers better their experience, right? Nobody wants to do that because, we're just men. We're inglorious bastards born in the mud. We've been spit on and kicked our whole lives. Now we're just here.
Not to take anything away from that, but we've lost the sense of honoring that. And so if we can bring back the sense of glory and fatherhood, God glorifying fatherhood, I think a lot of this stuff will get fixed.
How do we teach young men to be men?
Their fathers.
Well, I get it, but
nobody wants to teach women anything. I hate this world. How come nobody wants to help women? Nobody wants to fix women. Nobody wants to make women better. They all want to fix men. Oh, you men got to learn things. You men need wisdom. Nobody wants to teach women. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? It's only the men that need to be fixed. It's only the men that need to be improved. Nobody ever says, well, how are we going to teach women to be women? Just start paying attention to that. You'll notice that nobody wants to fix women. Women are perfect. Women are fine. Do I have to say it again? Girls just get to do stuff. Girls just do stuff.
What are we seeing now? We're seeing a large amount of young men are entering their 30s as virgins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that they should be going out and banging women. It should be that it's saying that they should be married and having children by that age.
And what should the women be doing? Like, who are the men supposed to marry, Tim? If the men in their 30s should be married, then can we say women in their 30s should be married to those men too, at least? Can we at least start there? I mean, it's not like the guys are going to marry their hand.
And not to give any special privileges to myself. I wasn't married, and I only had a kid recently. I'm 39. But I think it's fair to say that our society has driven a lot of young men into a wayward area. And in my experience, I would say don't do the things that I did. Find someone you love and care about as soon as you can and have those kids. But a lot of young men are playing video games all day. They're not.
Yeah, don't be like Tim. Don't play a lot of video games. Don't pour yourself into your passion. Don't build up this giant, huge compound to keep all the undesirables out. Don't bend your employee like you just read the Marry Your Secretary course from Dirty Folks. Trademark. Shout out to Dirty Folks. Don't do any of those things. Be better than Tim.
Not going outside. They're not engaging in sports. They're eating terrible food. In Japan, they have a group of young men they call hikikomori.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of this?
Yep.
They lock themselves in their bedrooms and play video games all day and do nothing. And we've got that problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if their fathers aren't teaching them, what do we do as a society? Or is the answer really just a bit cynical? We wait.
I want to learn from you, Tim. I want to build $1 million compound. I want to bang my employee. I want to knock up the chick that worked for me for the last couple of years. That sounds like a pretty decent model. Like, she sounded like she put in the work. You didn't just roll over after 6 months, right? You didn't just bang a hooker and suddenly, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me, right? It sounds like you put her through the employee training program. I wish you would tell me more about this instead of talking shit about the Manosphere.
And conservatives who do teach their kids will just out reproduce them. It's a sad prospect.
Well, I think it's twofold. I said kind of quick fathers, but we need strong and willing fathers, right? I think we have a lot of avoidant men that exist. We also have a lot of weak men who let the mothers take over the role of the father as well, even if they're in the household. So they cave in. They allow the child to do the thing that they want to do, right? Because, well, it's a lot easier.
Now the men are weak. Oh man, the men are just terrible. I mean, do good men even exist? You know, outside of you three, because you three are fine gentlemen. You're all noble, upstanding, got a chair carved out in heaven waiting for you. But everybody else, are there any good men out there besides you three? Like, geez.
Easier to just make my child my friend and just give them the thing that they want. But it's not the thing that they need. They need to get up and get off the couch and go get a job. They need to learn these things. They need to have responsibility. They need to learn to sacrifice. So I do think that the fathers, it's not just enough for them to be there. It's not just enough for them to go to work. They have to be actively involved in their child's life. And I would venture to say that that young man that went from the age of 17 into the mid-20s, stuck at home playing video games, is a young man who is depressed.
Shameless in the chat says, for instance, when asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? As a youth, I answered, a wife and mother. The response from educators time after time was the same. Is that all you want to do with your life? Or so you want to be a slave? Or don't you have any real goals, etc.? Thank you, Shane. And that's low key also why the men are depressed, because the girls that they could have married in 15 to 20 years time, they've been chased away from that life. They've been shamed out of wanting to do the traditional thing. And now here you are, you wish the guys would have been on the traditional path, but low key, you've been training women to betray men this whole time. And now you wonder what's wrong with the boys.
Right?
Yep.
I play video games. We all play video games. That's fine. But there's a balance in life, right? You play video games outside of the responsibilities and the duties that you have as a young man, right? It's to supplement. It's to take, some sort of distraction.
I view video games as, I'll put it this way. If I could skateboard every single day for 8 hours, I would, but your body breaks down. You have to rest. You can't, right. So you need days off. Well, then on a day that I can't, because I'm it's a rest day, what do I do to rest and then put my mind in a different space? Video games are for when you have no choice but to slow down and rest. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out.
You know, I'm not a gamer at all. Like, I haven't really gamed in years. Gave it all away. Even now that I think about it, I don't even play games on my phone. I work on my phone in my spare time. Like, I'm trying to do stuff important now. I'm trying to dedicate more of my time to productive activity, right? Because I'm an adult and video games don't pay money. But I just don't get all the video game hatred. Like, I don't think that's the issue here. That's more of a symptom. It's not the disease.
Not something you should be doing 24/7, where instead you burn yourself out on video games.
Correct.
To be fair, though, I have respect for pro gamers who create an entertaining job for people and work really hard at their craft and take care of themselves. That's totally fine. But for the people who are doing the issue I find with video games as opposed to any other sport is that if you're doing a sport as a hobby and not a career, you're in shape. You're going to be healthy. You're going to live longer. You're going to be sharper. But if you're doing video games all day and nothing else, your mind might, your dexterity might be pretty good, and your mind might be quicker in some respects. But without the physical activity, you're going to be weak, out of shape, and it's going to be hard for you, and you will get depressed. As we know, one of the easiest ways to cure your average depression, not like serious, defective depression, is just exercise.
Right.
You go for a
Yeah. Work, gym, home. Yeah, Red Pill guys worked that theory out a long time ago. Your beanie wisdom is a little bit late here, Tim.
run, you get a dopamine release, and you feel really good. And they say for people who are depressed, you need to start exercising. And I think for a lot of guys, that's probably it.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
So I think that
You know the funny thing about exercise, and try this. It's actually, it's a weird phenomena. If you are of the red pill inclination, is what these guys are talking about. You know, you one of the podcast pill bros, right? You getting in shape and buff and jacked, it's not necessarily going to make you like women anymore, but it'll make women like you more. So that's nice. But you're just going to start to see all the negative qualities in women, but you're going to get, you know, a little bit more action out of it. But me getting muscles isn't going to make her a better person. You realize that, right? Like I can get all the chest and the biceps and the quads and the glutes. I can get the whole package. But she's still going to be exactly who she was before I got in shape. And now she likes me because I'm hot and sexy now, right? Now she likes me. Doesn't really change the heart of the problem. And then, you know, speaking of working out and muscles and training and all that stuff, you know, for men, there's training, right? We got to train for things that we want to be, right? And even in this context, he's applying kind of training loosely to the conversation about men getting with women. Like, you know, if you hit the gym, you'd be less depressed. If you got less depressed, you go out there and you talk to a girl, right? But nobody's training girls. You know, once upon a time, we used to have a thing called home economics. Or it wasn't exactly wife school, but they at least taught you basic things about households. It was domestic training. And I don't think as a country, we actually train women in particular, because the male role isn't all that different from then versus now. But for women, we've abandoned training in that sense. So we'll send women off to learn how to do everything but be a good woman to, you know, her husband and her children. And that's maybe hard to train, because that's a very like internalized family and culture kind of thing. I don't want the government training women. That's kind of what we have right now. If the government trains women, all you're going to get is spies. And that's where we are right now. But I think we're going to wrap this one up right here. Why does Tim Pool hate the Manosphere, guys? I have no idea. Tim got a little bug in his bonnet. He got a little bee in his bonnet about the Manosphere recently. Who knows? Maybe it's because he's married. I don't know. Married guys tend to have a weird disposition in these conversations. It's like, hey, you know, my marriage is perfect. My wife was never going to be like that. Like, yeah, dude, we're not talking about you or your wife. I don't know, but hit that like button for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all the supporters out there. Like, share, and subscribe on your way out the door. And I will catch you guys later. Thank you.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.